Welcome to the Kolbecast, episode 129. Thank you for joining us. Here at Kolbe, we love the time-tested truths that are revealed by the classics. Although perhaps not on the level of Homer or Shakespeare, today we return to the Kolbecast archives to episode 40, where Kolbecast regular Dr. Don Prudlo joined Bonnie and Hope to discuss a college visit road trip and offer wonderful advice about things to think about as our high school students consider which college they might attend and how to successfully make the transition to college from Kolbe Academy. We wanted to highlight this advice for a second time, and we'll also link to other wonderful Life After Kolbe discussions in the show notes. We hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, liturgical musician, popcorn and podcast fanatic, and Kolbe homeschooling mom to 4 lads and lasses of middle and high school age.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
And I'm Hope, Bonnie's younger sister and a Kolbe alumna in a phase of life after being a student, but before becoming a parent. I studied communication theory and philosophy in college, then I went to law school. Now I'm an attorney, an avid home cook, and the fun aunt to Bonnie's kids.
This week we bring you the second in our series with Dr. Don Prudlo. Last week we heard a fantastic conversation on education, formation, and everything that is involved in that. So if you haven't already listened to that episode, definitely go back and check it out. This week we are taking it on the road to talk about when your students are getting close to looking at colleges, what to do, how to do it, looking at colleges, college road trips, interviews, meeting professors, all that good stuff. So welcome back, Dr. Prudlo.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So we got to talk to your daughter, Monnica, earlier in the season, and she spoke very highly of a college road trip that the two of you took when she was trying to decide where to head after graduating from Kolbe. Could you tell us about that road trip?
Yes, and it was with also my son who's at Kolbe too, so I thought I could get a twofer in. He was about 14 at the time, so maybe he wasn't as interested in looking at colleges, but he got a taste of it. So I thought that was a good opportunity. I was off on a sabbatical that year, and so in September or October, we decided we were going to visit a number of, particularly the Newman schools that we were familiar with. I had gone to Christendom, and my wife had gone to Christendom, and so she'd already been there many times, and so we were going to go through the center of the country, and so we visited University of Dallas, Baylor. We went to Benedictine, University of Mary in Bismarck. We went to Notre Dame and to Hillsdale. So we made a big circle tour from our home then in Alabama, and it took about 3 weeks, and we just had the best time. We did a number of different things, and besides visiting these schools, and I must say I had an ulterior motive in this. There were 4 states in the lower 48 states I had not been to. The Dakotas, Nebraska, and Kansas, and so I saw an opportunity to hit those 4 and to see things that I'd never seen before. And also, we are very big Green Bay Packers fans, so I surprised the kids at the end of the trip with a Green Bay Packers game in Detroit. So that was part of the fun. And we knew we could do this because of, we hoped we could do this because we'd traveled internationally before and done Kolbe internationally. Both my daughter and my son were in Kolbe at the time. Monica was in a number of clubs, such as the Newsletter Club. And we said, I've got all this data saved up from T-Mobile for the, what do they call that? The where you can use your phone as a hotspot. And so we said, we're just going to do the classes in the car. I'll turn the hotspot on, and people can attend classes from the car or from the hotel or from wherever we are at that point. And so we can do it entirely on the road. And so that's what we did for 3 weeks. We drove around 5,000 miles, and almost everywhere we were able to have, in all that time, I think my son only missed 1 class because we were in literally the most rural part of South Dakota you could imagine. And I don't think 1G has gotten there yet, much less 5G. So, but other than that, that was the only class he missed over the 3 weeks.
That sounds so fun, and what great memories.
Yeah, it was fun. We couldn't afford a game in Lambeau Field, so we had to go. There's always tickets in Detroit, though, so we were able to go to Detroit. And we got to visit a number of things, historical things from our family, the church in upstate Minnesota, where my great grandparents helped build. We visited the grave sites of many of their families, some of the restaurants that we remembered from Milwaukee and Detroit. One time they had class during lunchtime, and so they and my two kids had class in the street, and I went into the restaurant, got the pizza, and we ate the pizza in the car while they were having the class. So we just made it work wherever we were. We got to go to Mount Rushmore. We got to go to Clear Creek Abbey for the first time when we were here. So we got to do a number of amazing things while still doing Kolbe, and also being able to be physically present at all of these colleges, which otherwise would have, you might have had to fly to them or miss some of them and just visit them virtually. And just having physical presence on a campus that you're considering is really key. You want to visit in person.
We were talking about Gen X last time. That's me. So now lots of virtual visits are available, but seeing there, and that makes such a difference. I can remember thinking, I really want to go to this school. And then when I went to visit it, I was like, nope. And then I went to another school that I really wasn't considering, but felt I still needed to apply to. And that was the place for me. So I can see the value in the visiting there.
For Gen X, yeah, I found my college from a magazine ad. I mean, who does that anymore? Mm-hmm. But it is good to have the websites, because you can do thorough research before you get, and so you have the right questions to ask when you arrive for your personal visit.
Oh, that leads me right to my next question. So what kinds of questions do you think? Who do we want to seek out besides the admissions counselor?
Well, you want to go to the admissions counselor, but remember, the admissions counselor is like the used car salesman, right? They're going to give you the hard sell. They're going to give you all the best points of the school. They're going to give you the tour of all the shiny new buildings that they have, and maybe not the older ones. And so you need to look past that. You need to look past just the tire kicking in the admissions office. And you can go on the campus tour, and I encourage you to go on the campus tour. It's often led by the top students on campus, of course, and they're trained to talk up the school as well. But you also want to see, if you're interested in a particular field, ask if you can speak to a professor in that field. And many are willing to meet with prospective students. We love to meet with prospective students. I would also wander around the cafeteria and pick out a random student and a random staff member and just strike up a conversation with them, someone that is totally unrelated to the admissions office, and ask them, what do they like? What do they dislike? What are the challenges of this school? And in particular, you want to go to the chapel. You want to go, if it's a Catholic university, you want to go to a chapel. If it's a non-Catholic university, you want to see what the local Catholic community is like. If they have a Newman Center, meet with some of the students, some of the faith formators there, meet with the chaplain, hopefully. And if you do all of those things, you've got sort of academic, social, and religious all together, and you can have that sort of glow from the admissions meeting, but then you get to, look under the hood a little bit and see how the institution actually works.
Oh, I love these ideas, and this analogy to the car shopping. That's fantastic. That's a great suggestion, to find people who are just living their day, whatever day they're living. They aren't in on the sell necessarily, and to approach them. Do you have any suggestions for striking up a conversation like that?
Well, I'm pretty introverted, so I may not have the greatest tips for doing something like that. But if someone is sitting there and they're in the cafeteria and they've got a book open, they're by themselves, just overcome an initial worry about that, or ask at the Newman Center, right? It might be easier if you know someone is a Catholic, if you know someone is serious about their faith, and you strike up a conversation with them, and maybe ask someone there for their personal tour of campus, if anyone has time to sit down and show you around, and they might be able to start a conversation, a three-way conversation with somebody that they know from outside the admissions circle.
I remember when I was applying to college, I was the first Kolbe student who they had in a while. But then the following year, there was another Kolbe student who applied, and they ended up, I was not a campus ambassador or anything like that, but they ended up putting us together because of the Kolbe background. And so I was at a school that had very few homeschoolers. Since we know the Newman schools tend to have a larger homeschool population, it seems like that could be helpful in making those connections too.
Definitely. I know, when you look at the graduation video every year and you see a lot of Kolbe students, many of them going to the same places. And so there's a stream, particularly these Newman schools. And so I think hopefully Kolbe has some sort of way to keep people, talking, because I knew my daughter knew a Kolbe person that is at University of Dallas as well. And so that's an initial way to help somebody get acclimated to a campus. They can even communicate with them through, email or something like that before their campus visit. And even if they're not available to meet, they give them some insight as to the campus. There's also a guide. It's called the ISI Guide, Intercollegiate Studies Institute, that it's broader than the Newman Guide. The Newman Guide is for small Catholic liberal arts colleges. If you're interested in sort of the campus culture at larger universities, this ISI Guide is something good to look at, because if you're looking at someplace like Baylor or someplace like Tulsa, they're not going to be in the Newman Guide, but you may be interested in a professional school there, and so you can look at this ISI Guide, which has several hundred schools rated on a scale of whether people read the classics, whether they do great books, whether they have friendly professors to religious students, things like that.
That sounds great. That really sounds great. I'm introverted like you, and I remember when I was looking at colleges, I was excited but definitely nervous about going from kind of knowing my atmosphere into a school that was a lot bigger. And I ended up going to a school of about 3,000 to 5,000 people. I told Bonnie I was going to tell this story. I went to visit the large public university that she went to, and I had the worst timing. I arrived right at class change when the sidewalks were completely flooded and there were people riding their bikes to get across the campus that's like half of the town where it occupies. And I said, nope, can't go from homeschooling to this. Awesome for people who can. I can't. So I guess as a dad and as a professor, and whether those overlap or whether you speak differently wearing each hat, kind of what would you say to homeschoolers like me who were thinking, I'm excited to go to college, but wow, this is going to be a huge change in my environment?
The first thing they need to know is that if you graduate from Kolbe, you're going to be better prepared than 99% of the students that are entering. So in terms of academic study skills, in terms of content, in terms of the ability to write and speak and think, you are already well prepared. You talk about Kolbe. Kolbe is a college prep school, and that they mean it. And so I would tell myself that first. It's that, I've got sort of a leg up academically. Is this going to be a place that has people that are like-minded? All right. Is it going to be, if it's a Catholic place, do they have room for the particular spirituality that I like? If you like adoration, do they have adoration? If you like music, do they have a choir that you can join? If you like activities, right? I mean, do they have the kind of activities, plays, musical performances, things that would attract you? And if the more that you research, the more comfortable you're going to get with doing things like that. Particularly if you send you can send an email. You should send an email to the admissions department. But if you're interested in history, or if you're interested in languages or something, go to the department website and find a professor who looks interesting and send them an email and ask them about that. Ask them what they think of the school. The more you make personal contact, you can go to campus and you can have people there that you know already. And that gives you a foothold into the community that enables you to expand out from there. And so the more research you do and the more personal contacts you make, the more comfortable you're going to be. But I would say on the front end, just know academically you're going to be prepared. And that's a big step right there.
Oh, yeah, I can see that definitely being a source of reassurance, knowing that going into this whole new environment, and that makes a lot of space to get a handle on all the other new things, and the immensity of them would probably be much more manageable to approach, I think, knowing that this large aspect of academics is already well in hand. So yeah, you were speaking on our last episode about cultivating relationships, students approaching professors and visiting with them outside of class. Here it starts before that, even if those students end up not in those classes with those professors, but it's almost like practice for that as well.
I love having students, prospective students will come and they'll sit in my classes. And I try to engage them a little bit. That can be a little intimidating, but if I show that this is a place where you are going to have a voice and your voice is going to be appreciated according to the content and the contribution that you bring to class. I mean, that's really exciting for academically inclined students. That this is a place, and this is the thing. It's not so much a case with Kolbe or with homeschools, but for some of these smart kids coming from public schools, they've never really been challenged before. They've just sort of been able to skate through. They haven't had the kind of, and when they start to get intellectually stimulated, I mean, it's a privileging experience for them. I mean, it's really great. I mean, that if students know that it's not going to be like what they think, just high school is. It's not, a popularity contest. It's not, all of these cliques and stuff like that. That this is, you're doing something serious here, and the academics is going to come first. The social stuff is going to come later, but it's not going to be as petty and time consuming as high school can be, which is one of the great things that Kolbe liberates people from. Those really unnecessary experiences in teenage years.
Definitely. We've had a couple of alumni on episodes recently who have talked about how with Kolbe, they can be in different friend groups with their swimming friend group or their music friend group or whatever, and they can move in between them rather than being, I am a football player and that is my identity. And so I love the idea of looking at the different resources on campus that you mentioned about if you like to go to plays, look at the plays or different things. How do you go about finding, you mentioned a little bit on the previous episode, how do you go about finding out some of those fun campus traditions?
Well, one of the things to do is, and this is a really easy thing to do, even if you are an introvert, keep an eye out on the bulletin boards of places you go to, because college students really love, putting flyers up. And that'll give you an idea of what's going on campus. What are interesting, what's weird, what's strange. You might find some red flags when you look at the bulletin board, but it also can alert you to interesting things that is going to enhance your collegiate life, because there's so many opportunities. There's so many cultural opportunities, travel opportunities, study abroad. It's really exciting for a person to have these kind of experiences for the first time. And so keep your eyes and ears open, and you're going to learn about these things. In terms of college traditions, that's when you want to start to talk to people. Whether the college might have a tradition of a homecoming bonfire, or they have various dances that they do, or stranger things that we don't need to go into. But those are all binds people together in a community by having these kind of rituals and events. And for instance, colleges have actually done a good job in recent years of eliminating hazing culture. So students don't have to worry about that as much anymore. But the fun traditions have continued. And so that's a good development, I think, in college life.
That would be. My college had the tradition of a bell that you absolutely could not ring until you had finished your last final. Otherwise, you would not graduate. So it was always.
What would happen if someone tried to ring it? No one even tried.
No one even tried.
Everyone was scared too. Okay.
Tried.
There was one. Yeah. There was one class in my junior year where we were studying Thoreau's Walden, and so we got sent out to do nature journaling. And the professor, who was very, very, very tall, this professor went over and decided to call us back from our nature journaling by ringing the bell. And he was a professor. He was not a student. And all of us juniors were still like, oh, you ring the bell. He said, I've already got my PhD.
I also find that that homeschool students, and you all know this, Kolbe students, there's this myth that homeschool students are socially stunted and everything like this, and it's absolutely the opposite. I find it's the public school students that are often socially dysfunctional and have to learn to navigate college. I find Kolbe and homeschool students to integrate very, very easily.
Do you have a number of homeschool students now? Students?
Yes, the number is increasing every year. It's really amazing, and they're the ones that can write the best, and they speak the clearest, and they're really good students. And they speak to me as if they know how to talk to adults. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Have you seen with Kolbe students who are used to being very challenged, like you mentioned, that being different than some of the public schoolers? Have you seen homeschoolers almost overcomplicate things when they get to college because they're used to Kolbe's rigor, and then they get this kind of disparity with people who have an opposite background? I know I can be way too harsh on myself, or different things like that, where I think, am I doing enough? And I went to office hours one time in college, completely worried about something, and the professor said, "You're one of the students who doesn't need to come to office hours, but does. And I'm more worried about the students who do need to come to office hours and aren't." So I think I loved what you said about reassuring yourself if you're a Kolbe student looking at a college student that you can handle it. But I don't know, any tips for like calming down those of us who tend to overthink our
family trait,
academic performance?
It's a family trait.
That's exactly what I've noticed too. I had a girl. We had 4 papers in class. She was homeschooled, and she came to my office hours just in a tizzy because she got an 88 on the first paper. And then she proceeded to get a 92, a 95, and a 97. And I still saw her after every single, what did I do? How can I learn? How can I do better? And it was really great because she continued to improve. But you also have to take it easy on yourself a little bit. That this is a time, a really special time in your life. You have these 4 years where you're largely free from external obligation, from obligations. Most people from having to have a full-time job, having to have a family, be married, and all these things. And so you have to take time for yourself to let these things sink in, to be and to learn who you are. I mean, this is the great thing. You grow into your own personality really during these 4 years in college, and you have to allow that to happen. And you have to be kind. I mean, sometimes these are buzzwords, but you have to be kind to yourself, right? You have to know that not everything is going to be absolutely perfect. That some classes are going to be harder than others. And that that just because you get a bad grade doesn't mean that you personally are a failure. You may have gotten a bad grade because the professor knows that you can do better and can challenge yourself to do this. And so constantly take time, make time for spiritual growth, for spiritual reading, make time for alone time, make time for social time, and just go to a basketball game every once in a while. I mean, it's experience the full panoply. And sometimes and this is what I'll do. When I write, I always finish before I'm done writing, when I have more to say. And so I finish and I say I could write another 2 pages, but I'm not going to do that because that'll give you a head start on writing tomorrow. I'm going to go take a walk and do something else. And if you do things in such a way that you can give yourself extra time, I call it marinating. So I'll get a topic, I'll get a paper topic, and I don't want to start on it right away. I'm just going to roll it around in my head for a couple days or a week or so. And so I let it marinate. And it turns out that thoughts, just like food, is a lot better after you marinate it for a while. And so don't put all that pressure on the front end on yourself. Get things done. Have a schedule, but don't be so rigorous that you forget to be a human. You're not a walking brain. You're a human person. And so all of the aspects of a true human life need to be fulfilled in college, and that's where you learn to do it. That's when you should be learning to do it.
I visited Thomas Aquinas College in Ojai, California, and I didn't end up going there, but I was so struck by the students who they have this beautiful California mission architecture. And when I visited there were just students hanging out outside around the beautiful architecture with the California weather. And so I ended up I went to a different school, but I found an outdoor location and an indoor location where I wanted to hang out. And there was a very large tree in front of the all-girls dorm where I lived. And so I would spread out a blanket and do homework outside if it was possible.
Find these places of beauty. And that's one of the reasons why we have beautiful college campuses. It's for a place of contemplation and a place of social activity too. I mean, it's there.
Yeah, the study rooms would just help with focus so much and feel like, oh, I'm physically entering into this tradition as well as intellectually entering into it. So I'm
because we're human persons, right? I mean, that's what we need. The University of Mary has this beautiful library. It's all a window on the side, and it overlooks the Mississippi River and looks out to the west. And it's just a place where I could just spend hours just sitting there and reading. And you look up every now and then. But students today especially have to learn to find a place to disconnect, right, from all this electronic things that they have, not to be, because that's the problem. I see students, they're walking, next to each other on looking at their phones, and they're missing that kind of real genuine human interaction that the campus gives them. And that's what I look forward to for the Kolbe students so much, is to actually have this kind of physical interaction. That's the one thing that they don't get at Kolbe, and they're going to get it in their college experience. And I think they're ready for it.
You said you took your trip in September, right? Is that right?
Yes.
So it was a few weeks. So you had good weather for the most part. I was thinking about the weather in some of those northern.
Yes, it did. It did snow on us once in late September in Minnesota. But other than that, it was beautiful fall weather. It was just, it's a great time to visit. It's sort of before the season of college visits starts. If you can go early in the year, people aren't as overburdened with work yet. They're more willing to talk. They have more time, professors and students alike. So if you can go early, preferably early fall, but early spring is also, an option. Most colleges like to take applications early. So if you can go early fall, you should start looking by your sophomore year, and then have some trips planned for junior year.
And that's a good tip on the timing. It's after the semester has gotten underway, so it's not the newness of getting the semester off the ground, but it's not close enough to finals or breaks or things like that people are singularly focused on that. Okay, that's a good thing to know. What are some ways to discern what sort of school is best? Thinking about Catholic versus secular school, or a large campus or a small one, or I think it seems pretty consistent that schools want students to live on campus at least their first year, or making that decision to live off campus. What do you see are some ways to sort through these decisions?
Well, I definitely think students should live on campus for a year or two, before they do their own thing. It helps to structure their time, to structure their space a little bit better, and get away from home, which is, a useful thing, but it's different for different people. And they should also make sure, I mean, coming from the Kolbe tradition, that wherever they go, secular or Catholic school, that there's a serious Catholic presence that they can be a part of, even if it's a good parish that's near, hopefully within walking distance, or if there's a good Newman Center, or if it's a Catholic university. And if you go to a bigger Catholic university like Notre Dame, make sure that you find solid Catholic people, and there are many good things happening at Notre Dame or Catholic University of America, where you can find good, authentically Catholic stuff that's happening. So if you have that spiritual foundation set, then you can begin to expand and look at what kind of programs you're interested in. I'm really opposed to people, thinking they have to declare their major before they even set foot on campus. I really dislike that tendency. But with the professionalization, people are really thinking about that. You should be able to, if you don't go to a school with a core, like many of the Newman schools, hopefully there's something like the honors program at TU that can expose you to a broad range of different things, because you may go in thinking you're going to do accounting, and you may come out deciding that you want to be a botanist or a philosopher. That's what college should be for. I mean, and you shouldn't put the blinders on so early that you miss those great opportunities. Some of the greatest meetings that I've attended to were classes that were far out of my field. And I learned an incredible amount. I was accidentally at University of Virginia a TA, even though I did medieval studies, I was a TA for a Buddhism class because they needed someone. I didn't know anything about it, and so I learned it along with the students, and it was a fantastic class. I won't say you will learn something from every professor. I can point out one or two that I didn't learn very much from at all, but you will learn something from almost everyone. And you can learn something from almost everyone. And so not only take advantage of the cultural activities on campus, but go outside your field, take a class in romantic poetry, or take a class in Jane Austen, or something like that. Even if you want to be an engineer, it helps to make you a more rounded person and gives you a better exposure and a greater humanity when you do these sorts of things. So you want to look out for professional programs that might interest you, but also be open to that formative experience, that holistic formative experience.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense.
The joke goes sometimes when people enter with a lot of, whether it's AP credit or clumping out of classes or anything like that, the joke goes about being a sophomore by credit hours, and all the students give those people a hard time. And because I think that gets to the deeper truth of, like, until you've lived the experience of being on a college campus, even if you're academically ahead, that these years are formative. Like you said, you're developing and discovering your personality. And I think sometimes we don't talk about that enough in Catholic circles, because we get nervous at the whole idea of, like, discover yourself. But it really is true that everybody is uniquely designed, and that college is this opportunity to learn a lot more about your own gifts and your own talents and put them in context of civilization and society and things like that. And so I know some people are in a great rush to finish their degree and get out into the workforce, whereas others are kind of just there for the few years. And I know my school charged the same amount of tuition for full-time enrollment, anywhere between 12 and 18 credit hours for a semester. And so that worked out well, because there was some flexibility of how many classes you took so that you could have time to do other things as well and stay academically rigorous. But I think that also gave us room. I took a history of pirates class, which was very interesting. Went all the way back to, yo ho ho and a bottle of rum pirates. And then we had to do a final presentation, and I did it on fashion piracy, which was kind of interesting. It's completely outside of my field. But I think having schools that have that structure where you can take more or fewer classes can help encourage that, just, I'm here, this is a whole person experience, as opposed to, I'm paying for each credit hour, and so I need to pay for this hour to get this part of my degree to be able to get out at this time. So
yeah, just for parents, just a couple of things to note. Don't be frightened off by what I call the top line number, right? You'll see these exorbitant costs for college, and no one pays that number. There's always going to be financial aid. There's always going to be scholarships. There's always going to be grants. And so don't get frightened off by that. Also, like Hope said, if you have 18 credit hours included, go ahead and sign up for 18 credit hours of classes. There's a drop period where if you find you don't like the class, you simply drop that. Or if don't think you do well. So there's that possibility. I also want parents to, take a step back. Of course, they're interested in, bang for the buck, and is their child going to get a good job? And they should be concerned about those things. But I'd ask them to take the focus back a little bit. Think about, it's important what your child does, but that college is supposed to be a period of human formation, holistic formation, who your child is going to be as well. And so it's okay if they take some philosophy classes. It's okay if they take some religion classes. It's okay if they take some history classes, even if that doesn't lead directly to some sort of monetary benefit. And I think that the fact that they're at Kolbe already, they know that, and they know the importance of things like that. But I know people can get, anxious in, given economic conditions and things like that. And so look at colleges that take those things seriously, that take the formation of the whole person seriously, that take the great text seriously, that have programs that are spiritually serious places, because all of these are very, very critical to these years and it's nervous from a parent's perspective, right? I mean, you've been with them for 18 years, and now they're going off, and they're becoming their own person. They're making new decisions. They're having new challenges that we can't always help them directly with, and this is an absolutely critical point for their maturation, and something that I think the Gen Zs are excelling at. They're approaching it in a good way. So I think that's a great thing.
I'm glad you spoke up to the parents on these things to keep in mind. I was going to ask you your thoughts on how we as parents can support our students through their discernment of this process, and you spoke right to that. So you anticipated that. Thank you. I also wondered if you guys on your trip, when you hit the open road, if you would have confabs or hope like to use the word debriefing after your visits, when you would visit a school, as you were driving to the next one or at the end of the day or whatever, would you go through a number of what'd you like about this or what stood out to you or anything like that?
Yeah, we like to have it, sort of informally. So you wait till you get to dinner and you have a hamburger and you can start talking about various things. What we like to start out with was there anything funny that happened, or did you have any funny conversations, or they say something funny? And I know that one of the things that struck me, Hillsdale College has a library with 3 levels, and they called them the Paradiso, the Purgatorio, and the Inferno was the bottom level of the library. And so we thought that was great. But all of the colleges we visited had funny stories like that. And then we got into more serious things about topics and what we liked or disliked about them. So we did do that sort of debriefing thing, but we like to have it because it might come up, the next day, driving on the highway, at 2:00 in the afternoon. So if it came up then, sometimes it takes time to digest these things. You can't, it's like you have to let them marinate again. You can't always, you have to assess your impressions a little bit before you can vocalize them in a useful way.
I tend to think of things way after. They kind of rise to the surface out of the abyss.
Yep.
Here they are. This occurs to me however much later. So I would think that would be an advantage to the road trip, that there would be time for that.
When I was in Kolbe High School, we had several Joseph Pierce talks to listen to, and we found that the best time to listen to them was when we were driving, because there was enough visual interest to keep us engaged, but there was enough room to really process that. So I could see the windshield time of going from school to school being the best time for that marinating, and we call it staircase wit. I get it too, where it shows up. I think it's originally a French term, l'esprit d'escalier, of the things that show up way after you need them. But then on the funny stories, I was just going to ask, does Benedictine still make the freshmen wear beanies and have the older students try to steal beanies?
At least for the first week or two. I thought that was so cool. My daughter didn't think that was that great. I thought it was fantastic.
Well, a friend of mine met her husband when he stole her freshman beanie. So
there you go. Exactly. But you call those, what do you call those from the Julius Caesar book, the asparagus moments or something, I think? What
yes.
Is that? Yeah, the asparagus. So there's like, and we interspersed the visits. So we went from University of Dallas to Clear Creek Abbey to Benedictine to Mount Rushmore, Waldug, and then to University of Mary. And so you'd intersperse them with these different things that led to different conversations about American history, about monasticism, about all these different things. It was really neat.
And that speaks right to what Therese, your wife, who teaches for Kolbe, was talking to us on the episode where she was visiting about living history and experiencing history. How you worked it in is an ideal example of that.
Well, so we would live in, Germany while the kids were taking European history at Kolbe. And so we'd be going to some of these places that they were talking about in their classes. And so it's fantastic to pair that up.
Yeah. Wow. Well, what a wonderful treasure of memories. Just the whole experience, I would think. Down the road, that will, and pardon the pun, I walked right into that one too. And so many good lessons learned.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see how many stick. That's always the key.
This has been so helpful, Dr. Prudlo, and what a fun conversation. It's really been a joy.
It has been really fun. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's great questions, great conversation.
We so appreciate it.
And thanks for both of you for doing this. We really appreciate what you do for Kolbe. Thanks.
It's our honor.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary our Mother, pray for us. Saint Maximilian Kolbe, pray for us. Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam.